everybody, and welcome to September's Stars and Cards for the Homeward Healer podcast episode. So, we've decided to switch it up a little bit. Instead of doing the zodiac seasons, we've decided to try something new and we're going to stick to the calendar months. It's always good to switch things up, and nothing like Virgo season to try something different. Little sign. Anyway, this is so exciting because, funnily enough, so Virgo season has started a few days ago, and I think funnily enough, as a Virgo rising, I tend to over prepare and over, like create the lists and write out the stuff for the podcast. And this time I was like, I'm just gonna let go, let universe. Let's see. No more over preparing. This Virgo rising is learning some lessons about perfectionism, ongoing work around that. But I feel like the best conversations between you and I is when we kind of free flow. And
Mhm.
um, oftentimes we don't even follow the script. I don't follow my script. I don't know about you, but we just have. And so I'm like, let's do it. Let's just chat, because the entire exciting point of this podcast for me is to just chat about how to stay well, by talking about the energies and utilizing what we know or what they're signaling us to stay well. And every month, that's our thing, to talk about homecomings, as you talk about wellness, and being able to kind of move through and navigate what's coming our way externally by kind of grounding within ourselves. So,
Funny that you brought that up because I feel like Virgo season, and then so therefore majority of September has a real vibe about that juxtaposition between um, our habit work and our routines and our organization and our listing and all that kind of stuff with a real sense of like, yes, doing that, but not in a graspy way so that we are then trying to contain our intuition. It's like a real balance between the practical and the magic, which you and I both love. And I feel like Virgo season and actually into um, Libra season because of well, I'll talk about the cards in a minute, but the cards that are represented have a real like pull between them, or I guess in astrology you would call that opposition. And so there's a really lovely thing happening where it's asking us to do a both and a lot of both and. And so it's like it's almost like trust that you've got this, trust your knowledge, trust your expertise, trust your understanding, and let's see how today's episode unfolds without that constriction of, if we're over planned, we're maybe not noticing the downloads that want to come through or the meanders that our conversation wants to take. So I think it's perfectly Virgo season that you're told to do this.
love that. I love that you said the opposition. That I'm interested to hear more about that as we move through the episode, because Virgo's opposition is Pisces, and we're going to have that. So one of the big things of September is that lunar eclipse in Pisces that's happening on the 17th. And for folks that don't know, lunar eclipse is just a full moon that is amplified. And without getting into the astro jargon, it's an important one because um, for every year and a half, 18 months, we have the nodes in the sky, the lunar nodes that kind of indicate where eclipses are going to be happening. So they've been in the signs of Aries and Libra, giving us like eclipses in those two polarities. But this one is starting the Pisces Virgo series that are coming up for me and Jenny. I'm like, Virgos, get ready. Pisces too. A lot of surprises and portals of change coming our way. But this particular eclipse is interesting because the nodes haven't quite shifted into Pisces and Virgo yet. So that's happening in January. But this one little rogue eclipse is like, hey, I'm gonna show up here and
Shake things up a
I'm gonna
little.
just shake it up a little because you guys have been, I'm gonna let you know what's coming. So that's pretty cool. And so when you when you were talking about those the polarities of those energies, I'd be interested to hear the tarot interpretation of it. Because so much of Virgo and Pisces, as much as they're so different, one is more like free flowing and then the other is more like exacting, and but they're both want to be in service. They want to be
Mhm,
in service, healing service actually. Virgos
mhm.
are healers and most folks don't know that. They are the healers of the zodiac. They just do it in their own unique way. So I'm looking forward to this season in terms of the types of healing potential it holds too for
Yeah.
us, because we have entered that eclipse vibe already. We're in it. Once we start September, we're in it. And yeah, so we'll see.
It's cool because I when you say that Virgos are healers, I'm like, "Well, yeah, that makes so much sense to me now," because we always have this sort of sometimes there's that sort of pop culture sense about Virgos being really rigid and perfectionist and this, that, and the other. But I can guarantee the healers of past who were like the teachers, the mentors, the gardeners, the people who used herbal magic, who had the organized apothecaries, like, hello. That is like Virgo all the way, right? This is a lovely card for this season, the Magician, because it really bridges the gap between the two. The Magician is that air to earth, really channeled. It's literally like the tool, the workshop with all their tools laid out. And as much as this is the card for Virgo, Hermit.
Hmm. Is it really?
Johnny
Oh,
loves
it is. Oh, yeah.
the step by step, like
Mhm,
the hermit's beautiful because there's a step by step aspect of it, but they are on a spiritual journey. Like, so
mhm,
to me, when you're talking about the way you talk about Virgo, I'm like, yeah, that makes even more sense to me that the hermit's
mhm,
the card for Virgo because they are on like a pilgrimage, right? And they're lighting the way, but they can only see so far. And so the practicality is what's here for me right now, what's my next best step, but they're ultimately on a pilgrimage, on like a sacred journey. So that again embodies Virgo beautifully. But that can be quite isolating and it can be at times in itself says so.
mhm.
And with the numerology support card of the moon can be very esoteric, confusing at times because they're almost too their vision's almost too small, like too right in front of them. They can't see the bigger picture. So then sometimes you get lost fumbling around.
Mhm.
But what's really beautiful is you've got the support of the magician, and actually a really practical, fun card is the Page of Pentacles. And um, I learned about the Page of Pentacles being like a living altar,
Mm,
um, treating your life like a living altar. So you're around behaviors, and so treating your habits as if they're sacred and that they are adding, contributing to your life, and not just mindlessly going through the motions of what habits and ritual routines that you're doing because you read it on in a book or someone told you to do it, but it's actually like what serves me best, and I'm going to place that behavior on an altar. So the energy, like from the cards, even for Virgo, is so like exactly what you talk about. Just so beautiful that mix between how do we bring ourselves out? Yes, we're like in our sort of mystical realms, but how do we make that practical? It's like literally practical magic. It's magic in the mundane. It's your like everyday magic stuff. It's what happens when you engage in a healthy way with your habits and your routines and what can come from it and what space comes from it. So
That's really neat because, we've just had such a jarring August, and I think the energy of Virgo is gonna be so great. So
yeah,
it's sort of like the practicalities of how we can just, like, regroup or, um
yeah,
from the aftermath of what was one of the toughest Augusts, not for everybody, but, like, I think it depends because if you have your tools in place,
yeah,
there's life's privileges, and there's so many different factors, though we don't experience the energies the same way, obviously, our own personal natal charts. But,
yeah.
um, as an astrologer, I mean, that's what I would say. But I definitely do think it was a tough August overall. With Mercury retrograde being over, I think we're going to feel a lot more inclined to being able to pinpoint what we need
Hmm.
in a practical way by paying attention to the details, which is always my thing when it comes to Virgo. It is so beautiful, like beautifully able to just like kind of like excavate and go, well, I love this bigger picture here of where I want to be, but how am I going to get there? Details.
Yeah.
Um, like what's my schedule like? What are what even my thoughts, like where are they taking me? And So the beginning of the month, like that first week, there's a lot going on astrologically, meaning like um we have that new moon on the second. So the second brings the new moon, and I think it really is a great time, as you were saying, to really think about the practical magic elements of this month and what it can offer for us. So just want to put
Mhm.
that out there. And as always, with a new moon, we have like a first couple of weeks to really like do stuff.
What's cool about Leo season, as much as it could have been very frustrating for a lot of us, I think it identified for us areas that we really need or would like to adjust and pivot and change. And so I think for some of us, we have a very clear idea about sort of the habits and routines we want to work on or that we want to expand on or embrace. And I think it's like the fallout from that, as much as that can be really challenging, sometimes these things are happening for a reason to sort of identify where we want to shift and change a wee bit. And there's real potential for in the smallest, like, yes, not getting bogged down in the details, but in letting our lives be like more simplified. Like, how do we allow simplicity in our lives? How do we allow for more whimsy in our everyday lives? Like, literally
Yeah.
noticing the steam coming off your cup of coffee when you're making it in the morning, or the way the sun comes in the window. Like, can we embrace that? Can we allow a bit more of that? That's that kind of energy, especially with the magician. It wants the details to be magical. It wants your work
Right.
to have that element to it.
If we can get to that place, or at least dwell in that place in our
Try.
everyday, try, it would bring so much more ease because, especially for some of us who are real overthinkers, or I mean, who really isn't at this, in the world we're in with like overwhelm of information and everything and phones and social media. But if we were able to literally be happy with and content with that steam from the coffee rising, and like, I don't know, I just feel like the these expectations we have of things to be, you know, wildly different than they are sometimes is brings a lot of suffering. And I think that we want to hope and strive to like, you know, for the things we want to hope and strive for. But I also feel, as you mentioned, like the magic is literally in like, and this is exactly that month. It's that time of year where, it's both that opposition between Virgo and Pisces that wants to show us this too. Because Pisces is like all in the realm of the ethers and energy, and it's trying to show us like it's about the energy of stuff, right? Like, are you
Mhm.
actually drinking this coffee with like what kind of energy are you drinking it with? Are you aware? Are you present? You know, um, when you're making your food, what is the energy that goes into the food that you make? I had a friend many years ago who used to tell me, even when I eat junk food, I give
Yeah.
thanks and I eat it with like, or whatever it is, to appreciate that I'm getting some kind of nourishment. And I feel like I heard what she was saying. She's like, it like transmutes the energy of the
Mhm.
bad stuff in the food. I'm not saying like eat, you know, junk food all day long. But it's just this idea that like it's our energy and our thoughts and everything really impacts. And Virgo's like the practical magic that you're talking about, it's like, sure, let's focus on eating like the things that are aligned for our body and everything. And then Pisces is also like, let's also give gratitude, or let's try to like also be mindful of the energy that goes into this wellness or the state
Yeah.
of well-being that we're creating. So the details are great, but let's not also, and I think that full moon in Pisces may be coming through a little bit in that regard, being like, um Virgo, chill. Like, also
Yeah.
chill a little bit, like it's
Chill.
cool.
Totally. That's so funny because so when as you're talking, right, I just realized, and I never put this 2 together, but that the moon is actually the card that rules as associated with Pisces, which is one of the cards for this month, so this is a numerological link that I do, so I like to do, like, elemental numerological, astral links for everything, so I pulled this card out and always been working with this, and then didn't really notice that, like, in Pisces season, I'm pulling out the the same card to work, and it's literally the moon, so the full moon, so that makes me feel like that full moon in Pisces is gonna be really impactful and meaningful. Like, it's literally placed in, if you could see, I've got my 4 cards sitting there, it's literally placed in right in the center of the cards. and I didn't realize that, but this feels important, like, more that and I just wrote a post the other day that was like that I'll post probably this week, but maybe I'll save it actually for Pisces full moon, about not being very mindful not to get graspy in this month. That I think Virgo unaligned can be really graspy and controlling. And when things feel like we're not going our way that we want our habits and routines to go, that we get a bit rigid with it. And actually the rigidity is not what Pisces wants.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about like our intuition as our guide, which is
Yes.
Virgo's not comfortable with that. But
No.
Pisces is like,
No.
nope.
It's yes. So when we talk about the magician, it's like, how do you balance the air and the earth? So how do we get ourselves
Mhm.
out of our head and sort of balance it into the earth? And the earth is very grounded and it has a lot of practicality to it. And so it is like, yes, how do we kind of balance that out and just let it be a bit more easeful? Like we keep
Yeah,
saying that, like a bit less rigid. It's okay if it's not perfect. Perfection is such a pill.
right. It
It
really
is
is.
such a pill. I know.
And also, like, it's like perfectionism in addition to wanting, like, tangible results sometimes, and, like, that sort of earth energy of, like, I need to see it to believe it, and, and that's actually what makes Virgo a really great healer because, like I said, it wants to see, did your stomachache go away? Is your
Yeah.
headache gone? But when you were saying work with Earth, it's wild because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, as you know, that's the planetary connection to it, and so yeah, it is that air, Earth air vibe going on where it can get a little heady, and so it does benefit from connecting with the Earth, and I think this month is really is also, as you said, like I think it's really important to try to, if one can get out to nature or if one can like literally just put their
Yeah.
hands in like a pot, like potted plant in the house, like literally holding soil in your hand to
Mm.
I think that is really it's a potent thing to do. I think gets out of the head or into the body or some somatic work or like body work would be
Body work,
really great
huge,
as
yeah.
well, like gentle, not like, but yeah, like to get back and get out of the head. I think that really helps with the energies of this particular September. There's also a couple of other things happening, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are because so not only is it major that we're having that eclipse, but we're having kind of like well two other big things. So the fall begins. So the 22nd is the fall equinox and the beginning of Libra season. Um, and we can talk about that in 1 second. I also just wanted to say something very, very huge is happening and I wrote more about it on my Patreon blog. But so Pluto's been in Aquarius. It's been doing a song and dance to leave Capricorn for Aquarius. It doesn't do it so quickly. It's not like the other planets like that move fast. But when you have something like Pluto, it moves so slow that when it retrogrades, it kind of moves back into the old sign, then it goes back into the new sign, then it goes back into the old sign. It does a little thing like that. So we kind of get like it's almost like did I make my message clear? Because
Mm,
I'm such a backdrop energy and you may not be aware of what's going on and the lessons I tried to bring. And it's kind of like does this thing. So we've been in a experienced the Aquarius iteration of it, bringing massive shifts. This is a huge deal. Many of us have been talking about like we're already Pluto has been in Aquarius and it has been, but it has a final 2 months from September the 1st until November 19th. And it is a short stay, but it is really, really significant. It is like literally the wrap up, whatever kind of had been lingering. So when we've had Pluto in our charts for like 16 years in the sign of Capricorn, so you look at your Capricorn placement, what has been significantly happening in the last 16 years for you since 2008? You may get a little bit of a throwback moment for 2 months. And it doesn't have to be jarring, but it's sort of like if you find yourself, because and much of it is kind of in retrograde motion. So it's also very internal, it's very kind of reflective. It may feel like a regression. Uh,
mhm.
and then it does move forward and then sort of come back again. But it is also on what we call in astrology that anaretic degree of the 29th degree, the final degree of a sign. So there's a sense of urgency that if we didn't kind of do that
Mhm.
thing. So I think it's cool that it's happening in Virgo season because I think it's important to pay attention to this is the season where you're like, all right, I
Mhm.
may get a little bit too much in my head about it, which is the maybe the downfall, but it also is the month where you're like, okay, it's time to sign that contract or it's time to do the thing, practicality. I'm going to like this is about manifesting what I need to see happen. I'm going to lay the groundwork now. So it could be that kind of moment as well this month where for the next couple months, but starting in September. So I just want to say there's a backdrop of that happening too.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because Capricorn, is associated with the devil card in the tarot, and that is all about, like, cycles of shame, um, like, separation from old stories and old identities, letting things go that don't serve us anymore, working it is an earth energy, but it is very much working with the stories that we've been told about ourselves that we realize, "Oh, actually." It's like it's kinda got a trickster energy to it, so it's almost like, "Look over here, look over here." So when we're talking about it on the bigger stage, we're talking about misinformation, we're talking about um, which is fascinating, and we all know what's happening in the States right now and working up towards November, so this is gonna be a really interesting time politically, I think, and we all also know as much as you're in Canada, I'm in the UK, that what happens in the States impacts us as well. We've got a lot of stuff happening in the UK that's been influenced by the States. So we are watching and we are keeping an eye out on that. But it's almost like when that energy, that devil energy is activated, or it feels like it's being challenged, or it feels like it's stuck in a corner, it can be very volatile. And I think that that's just something to be really mindful of. So on a political, yeah, bigger stage, but also within ourselves, it's like there's maybe this next couple months is an opportunity for us to really unravel from some stories that have been holding us back, and Virgo wants to go, they want to do, and it's like, okay, so what's stopping me from actually engaging in those healthier habits and healthier routine, healthy for me, healthy for you, whatever that looks like, what's going to contribute to our life in a healthy way or a more expansive way, and what stories are holding us back from actually engaging with those things.
You're absolutely right. I think that folks who may be a little hit harder with this
Mhm,
regression or what's the sort of retrograde move back into Capricorn for Pluto is that, yeah, and Pluto is associated with fears,
mhm,
with our shadows, like it's
mhm.
secrets, power control issues. These are all, as
Yep,
you said, the stories we have in our heads about what's possible for us, what's not possible for us. And in our everyday life, it's us interacting with the systems like patriarchy, like
mhm.
all the things, right? Like
All the
colonialism, like
isms. Yep.
all the isms. That's Pluto and Capricorn. It literally
Yeah,
is. That is literally what Pluto and Capricorn is. And
yeah,
we've seen the breakdown of all of that. It's very discombobulating, right?
yeah.
And in Aquarius, it indicates liberation. Aquarius,
Mhm.
progress, humanitarianism,
Yeah,
collectivism. And on a personal level, it really is like what is going to free you is are those narratives like how are they? It's like the devil card, as you said. How are you keeping yourself in
yeah,
um, our sort of addictions, our tendencies to suppress, our tendencies to all the things. So we may get like a blast from the past with that if we've made any
yeah,
kind of progress in our life, like a healing progress. I mean,
yeah,
or healing kind of, you know, efforts. I think if folks feel a little bit like, oh my God, what is happening? Not to fret. I mean, those
yeah.
who haven't at all, it's an opportunity to at least become aware, and then there's work for you to do, but we're talking to the folks who are here listening, knowing like people are on their journey. So if one feels a little bit like there's that thing, and I just also want to add that Uranus stations retrograde on September 1st as well. And in total, we've got Saturn is still retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, Pluto is
Mhm.
retrograde, and Uranus joining them. And so I think it's important to realize that there's still a slowdown in certain parts of our life somewhere, depending on our charts, but also
Yeah,
collectively, the energies are still like having us reflect. And Mars does also Mars, the planet of action and the planet
Mhm.
of, like how we show up and fight. Our, that sort of part of us is going from Gemini to Cancer this month too. That's that first week that I was talking about. So on the 4th. And I think we're gonna really cool. I like this. People may not
Mhm.
like it. I don't know, but I like it because it's so frantic and it was so frantic in Gemini. And I think it was adding to what you were mentioning, the disinformation, over information, all the sort
Yes.
of internet battles we were seeing. It wasn't just a Mercury retrograde, it was also Mars in was doing some stuff. So I think that in Cancer, it's a little hesitant. Some might say, well, we're less likely to take action, but given the August we had, and given like how we're moving into like, with this Pluto kind of
Mhm.
regression back into Capricorn, I think I'm kind of happy it's there. I think in Cancer it's more cautious. It slows down
Mhm.
a bit. It hesitates a little bit before moving
Yeah.
forward. May not be so bad. I don't know. That
Waters,
wanted
like
to add that.
yeah, the water associated cancer with the fire associated with Mars, and we know water can cool the fires, but actually, much like a lot of when you have fire and water elements, especially with to do the tarot, what we talk about is the alchemy that has to happen to work for those two to work. So the potential there is maybe pausing and slowing down is what's needed right now to really see what's the next best step or path, or to allow something to sort of yeah. And but when you to go back just to quickly to say about Pluto, and we're talking about Pluto going into different places and movement. Pluto's ruled by judgment. So judgment card is like seeing behind the veil. Like you have been shown a truth and you can do this if you want to, but we are seeing the truth around things, and you can only make your best choices once you've had all the information. And so, this time round we were seeing, especially with Capricorn, it's like seeing this last section, it's seeing the systems at play very clearly. We can't put our head in the sands anymore. And that's where the Aquarius, I feel, is going to be, because we can't deny it, because we can't ignore it. It's like, okay, so now what do we do about it? That's what Aquarius feels like: hopeful potential.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because I think too, like we may have moments this month where we feel like we haven't done enough. And
Mhm.
um like I haven't done enough. Like I have even right now I can sense like I'm like, why haven't I been on my like am I not taking better care of my body? Like why haven't I it's like this thing where this is gonna happen this month. This is
Yeah.
literally Virgo's thing. Virgo stresses itself into doing the things it needs to do. And it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. It needs to be told that it's okay. It's okay. You know what? Good thing we're here now,
Mhm.
and you have kept, this energy has kept us focused and diligent about our wellness. It has. And so just a reminder to ourselves, if we have those moments this month, as you said, that healing is it's a spiral. It sometimes plummets, regress, back, forth, all these things, but it's like we're doing it. We're peeling back the layers. We're taking a peek. We're not ready yet. We're gonna just kind of go like this. There's no judgment in how. There's no judgment. Um, in spite of the card. Well, the
I
message
know.
there is really no judgment on how it's done, as long as we're aware and we're doing what we can. So I think this month, the next 2 months in our life can be really a beautiful time
Mhm.
to whether people are doing it through like reflection of like waking up, pulling cards, thinking about
Right.
having that moment, or whether it's through therapy or talking to folks, or whether it's like whatever we think we are, only we know. And that's the thing about the Virgo energy is like the details of how things work for you. You know what you need. You know what speaks to you. You don't need to
Yeah.
listen to so and so say, "Well, you got to journal every day," because like not all of us love doing that. So like what works though? But that's the thing, what works?
Yeah.
This is the month. What are you going to lay in place? What foundations do you want to lay in place?
So if we want to go to like a practical, like the card that I would really highly recommend people using this month is the Page of Pentacles. It is my favorite card of the deck often. It's an earth, so it's got a pure earth energy, whereas a lot of, I call them like energetic siblings. A lot of the sort of page knight, queen or kings can have two because the queens represent cups or water, and then each of the like a sword would be air. So you'd have a water air for Queen of Swords. So page is one of the pure sort of earth energies. But what's really beautiful is the pages are very um they're what's about what's possible, and they're very forward thinking, and they've got like a youthful sort of like positive vibe, like things are going to work out, like they're not jaded yet. So what's it's Jessica Dore that actually said in her book about that, like treating your life, your behaviors as items that you're placing on a living altar. And I love that. So if we can choose our habits and our behaviors to be something that we treat them as sacred. So what would you treat as sacred in your life as your everyday like behavior, as your everyday habit? Not just going through the motions, but they want you to be very intentional. Like, why are we doing this? But like, why are we doing it? But why? And oh, this is going to be great because this is going to allow this space to open up and my mind to be calm and my body to feel well. And for the most part, so I would say if you're looking for something as an anchor card for this month, this is a great one. If you tarot, it's a great one to use.
I love that so much. I'm gonna sit with that card for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I want to say too that as we enter that sort of last part of the month in September, so that 22nd, that sort of last week um, and a bit. So, we have the equinox, and that's always a potent energy as well because, the balance, the balancing factor, balancing the scales, so to speak, as we enter Libra season. And um, Venus also enters Scorpio at that time. We're going into that sacred space. I wanted to also add that Mercury also joins Libra at the end of this month. So, Mercury moves really fast. Oh, did you see the thumbs up? That was funny. Um, so I just wanted to let folks know that this is great in that first part, those first kind of 3 weeks of, what Jenny and I were just talking about. We got a good 3 weeks, and I think it's kind of cool because of the first 2 weeks of September are sort of where that moon's in the lunar cycle. We are where we want to do stuff. Really
Mhm.
great energy, momentum to get projects started, and even our own routine and wellness things going and whatnot. And then we hit that lunar eclipse on the 17th, and that's that full moon amplified moment. It's a portal. I don't work with eclipse energy. Maybe some other folks say not in my
Not
not
for me
not
either.
what I follow. You just kinda
No,
let it unfold. It's a letting go
too
moment.
much.
Totally. And it's
And
about,
write
like,
it out.
yeah, for sure. I mean, some people do. You don't want that energy. You don't wanna charge your crystals on that night.
No.
Absolutely not. You don't want that in your crystals. You do not. It is a full moon, though, so folks don't kind of, but it's an eclipsed, full moon.
Yeah.
So we just wanna,
Even full
like.
moons, I don't charge with full moons at all. New
Oh, you
moons,
don't at all either. Okay,
yeah,
there you go. Okay.
too
Um
much. It's too
It
much, too
it is
potent.
it is so much like illumination and letting go, and but just paying attention that midway point in the lunar cycle this month as well, like like what's coming to you is that sort of like Pisces like
Mhm,
portal of like probably lots of downloads, lots of messages
mhm.
around that time. And then we move into the, third and fourth quarter of the moon as we kind of get into Libra. We have that. So it's actually kind of really nice this September, the way it follows. So after that full moon, we're sort of in the moment of like, what was revealed,
Yes.
like what am I fine tuning here as I'm moving into Libra season to balance the scales of my life.
Mhm.
um and Venus enters Scorpio, bringing the magic, even amplifying that further. So it really, really, um, really cool the way the moon cycle is matching also like what's going on. And there's a ton of other planetary aspects we just don't have time to get into. But for that, you can always check out my Patreon post. I have the details of the dates, I have a calendar. So, that stuff, it's just overwhelm of information because the planets are always in communication with one another, and they're signaling even more specific messages to us to fine tune, just like you pull your cards to even further fine tune in for folks, in addition to what the general cards are for the month. But there's always more we can kind of delve into to get to the nitty gritty of what the messages are.
That's perfect. It's like harnessing the first couple weeks, kind of experimenting and letting yourself and trusting yourself that you're gonna like know the right path, what's for you, what's not for you, and planting the seeds and all that kind of earth energy. Like it's slow, it's a slow build, it's slow nurturing to nurturing the seeds. And so anything that's the pentacles, that's anything to do with earth energy is a kind of a planting and and attending and a nurturing. And I think like use this, let's harness the first couple weeks to just kind of like go for it, try things, try them on, see how it feels. And then with that full moon, see what comes up. I don't work with it, but I certainly pay attention to it. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like that feels constricting. That feels too tight. That feels too controlling. Or am I where I'm not letting enough intuition in, I'm not letting enough magic in. How can I ease that? So it is just being really compassionate with yourself. Virgo thrives in compassion, that thrives in like acceptance and being witnessed and, in a positive way. So if you can do that for yourself, because no one's going to do it for you if you don't do it for yourself.
And it's really wild because that's actually the opposing sign to it, which is Pisces, is the ultimate symbol of compassion.
Mhm.
It is probably the most compassionate sign of the zodiac. So it's constantly trying to be like, "Hey, give me a hug, Virgo." Virgo's like, "Get away from me."
Yeah.
I got
It's like, love me, don't love me.
yeah,
Leave me
yeah,
be.
totally. Just love me, tell me you love me, and I'm gonna just be over here. Don't get too
It'll
close
be all
to me.
right. We're good. We don't need to move so fast. Let's just chill.
Totally. Make sure you
Yeah.
wear a mask too. Actually,
Yes.
speaking of which,
Yeah.
um, wild times, wild times.
Yes.
Oh, I did wanna also add to, with what was a very, like, mentally discombobulating August, I think September is gonna also bring a lot of discernment, so, kinda
Mhm.
learning I was saying to folks, I think we after that August, we're gonna kind of have a better sense of, like, what information we wanna work with and what we don't, so it's like, maybe you find yourself going, I'm so deleting this other account. I'm like removing this. I'm not following. I'm going to just mute this person. But this it's not even like a judgy kind of like from a sort of a um it's more from an aligned place of like, guess what? Like I appreciate this person's efforts, but I'm gonna go over here because this is what feels right. But again, not delusionally right, but like right as in I'm getting the facts, I'm getting the information, I can work with this as opposed to I'm getting like a ton of multiply contradictory and like the frantic energy. So I think that's actually going to be really cool as well this September in terms of information sharing and information receiving and like then curating what you'd like to
Curating.
have,
Oh, yes.
but like
Virgos
consciously.
love it's literally like making playlists, curating your Instagram feed. It's like putting your paintings on a wall and making a like a gallery wall. It's like it is curating. I love that word. I think that's perfect. Curating your habits, like that, treating them like they're valuable. You know what I mean? It's that. And what vibe do you want? Like I don't hate the word vibe, but what vibe do you want to be feeling right now? Do you know what I mean?
Because
Love that.
I think it's important too because we're obviously talking to folks who are not bypassers and they're people that are likely soaking in a lot of like tense
Mhm.
and intense information. So that's I know that's likely our audience. And so I just want to like give a big collective hug because I know that so the curation isn't to avoid knowing what's going on in the world, but it's to say, oh my God, like you can have a couple accounts that are giving you that solid information. And
That you
is there a
trust.
way you're balancing the scales as we move into Libra season, going like, how are you filling your cup? What are you pouring into it? Because Virgo knows that, but Virgo can also ignore it too for itself. Like it can give you the information, but is it going to like do the thing itself?
Shadi,
Yes,
I feel so
I,
seen. Do you mean we like to preach to others what we don't do for ourselves? What do you mean?
my God. It's also very Cancerian too, and we both have
Yeah,
like Cancer placements, but
yes,
we're laughing because we know.
we know. And yeah, Libra season's great because this we've got it is literally associated with the Justice card, which is the scales, but it's also has the Empress and which is about receiving. And so there is like gonna be, yeah, it's another gonna be like a quite a an interesting one in terms of pulling ourselves into uh that kind of work, but like from a really, really compassionate place. Like you're going to be asked a lot to do a lot of self compassion and work in the next in Libra season. So we'll hold on to that one, but especially because
Yeah,
a lot of us who are empaths don't feel that we deserve to feel those things when there's so much going on and there's so much hardship. And I would argue actually it's more important than ever to allow ourselves and to model that for other people too. That we us everyone deserves love and compassion, and
yeah,
and it doesn't, and us denying ourselves that doesn't allow anyone else to have theirs. Do you know what I mean? But
exactly.
creating more of it definitely helps.
100%. So
Yeah.
with that,
Happy September, everyone.
remember, yeah, stay well, and I really look forward to recording the next one
Mhm.
and chatting about October.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody. We'll
thanks
see you next
everyone.
month.
See you next month. Bye.